Alright, something strange is happening at Microsoft right now. The same company that spent the last few years aggressively pushing artificial intelligence into every corner of Windows is suddenly starting to slow down. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but quietly, carefully, and in a way that most people probably wouldn't even notice, unless they were paying very close attention. And when you look at what's changing behind the scenes, it starts to feel like Microsoft is finally realizing something important. They might have pushed Windows 11 too far. Because if you've used Windows 11 recently, you've probably felt it. The experience isn't just about opening apps and getting work done anymore. It feels guided. Like the system is constantly trying to assist you, suggest things, recommend actions, and in some cases, steer you towards specific tools and services. And at the center of all of this is one thing: AI. Now, to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the moment when AI suddenly became the biggest trend in tech. Every major company jumped in, but Microsoft didn't just join the race. They tried to lead it. They invested billions into AI infrastructure. They integrated AI directly into their products. And most importantly, they turned Windows, the operating system used by over 1 billion people, into a platform for that AI. That's where Copilot came in. Instead of being a separate app you could install or ignore, Copilot was built directly into the system. Right into the taskbar. Right into system apps. Right into the core experience of using your computer. And on paper, it sounded like a huge leap forward. An operating system that doesn't just sit there, but actively helps you write emails faster, summarize documents, search smarter, automate tasks. But here's the part that Microsoft may have underestimated. Most users didn't ask for this. They didn't wake up one day thinking, "I wish my operating system was constantly powered by AI." What they wanted was simple: speed, stability, control, and instead, what they got felt like a system that was changing faster than they could adapt to. At first, it was subtle. A new icon here, a new feature there. But over time, it started to add up. And that's when the experience began to shift. As more of these features started appearing, something else began to happen. The overall feel of the system started to change. Menus became more crowded. Background processes increased. And for a lot of users, especially those who pay attention to performance, things didn't feel as smooth as before. Now, to be fair, not everyone noticed this. For casual users, Windows 11 still worked fine. But for gamers, developers, and power users, the people who really push their systems, the differences were harder to ignore. Applications sometimes took longer to open. System resources were being used in ways that weren't always clear. And there was a growing sense that the operating system was doing more in the background than it used to. But performance wasn't the only concern. The bigger issue was privacy. Because Microsoft introduced a feature designed to remember what you've seen and worked on, and help you find it instantly later. It sounded useful, but when people understood how it actually worked, the reaction changed quickly. Because it relied on capturing snapshots of your activity. Not just files you saved, but things you viewed, things you typed, and what appeared on your screen. Even if stored locally, that kind of data creates risk. Passwords, private messages, financial details, all potentially sitting inside a searchable history. And just like that, this wasn't about convenience anymore. It became about trust. And once trust becomes part of the conversation, things escalate quickly. Users didn't just complain. They started pushing back. People began turning features off wherever they could, digging through settings, looking for ways to regain control over their own systems. Forums filled with discussions about how to disable certain services, how to reduce background activity, how to make Windows feel normal again. And then something even more unusual started happening. Instead of adapting to the new system, people started leaving it. This is where things took a turn that Microsoft couldn't ignore. Users weren't just tweaking settings anymore, they were stepping away. Some began downgrading to older versions of Windows, something that almost never happens at scale. Others started seriously considering alternatives, not just experimenting, but switching permanently. Linux, once seen as a niche option, started gaining real attention. Distributions became easier to install. Gaming has improved. Software support became more practical. For the first time in years, Windows wasn't the only obvious choice. At the same time, Apple was quietly gaining ground. Not because it was perfect, but because it offered consistency. No aggressive feature pushes. No constant system changes users didn't ask for. And when users start comparing experiences like that, it creates real pressure. Microsoft saw the feedback, the criticism, the hesitation. And instead of ignoring it, they started adjusting. Not with big announcements, but subtle changes. Reports suggested they were scaling back aggressive AI integration. The Copilot became more controlled. The strategy shifted from push everywhere to something more careful and selective. But here's where it gets interesting. While pulling back in some areas, they were still heavily investing in AI. Promoting AI devices, expanding AI across products, deepening cloud integration. So it looks like they're slowing down, but at the same time, still moving forward fast. Which raises the question, what exactly is the strategy? To understand this, you have to zoom out. Windows is no longer just an operating system. It's a platform, connected to cloud services, subscriptions, productivity tools, and now AI. Everything is part of a larger ecosystem. That means new features aren't just about improving Windows. They're about guiding users into that ecosystem. And this is where balance becomes critical. On one side, real innovation. AI tools that save time and simplify tasks. On the other, user fatigue. Too many changes. Too many background processes. Too many features that feel unnecessary. And when that balance breaks, users feel like they're losing control. To be fair, Microsoft is adjusting. They're refining features, being more cautious, and clearly listening to feedback. But the bigger direction hasn't changed. AI is still the future they're building toward. So the real question isn't whether AI will be part of Windows. It's how it will be implemented. Will it feel like a tool you choose? Or something always running, whether you want it or not? Because that difference matters. Right now, Microsoft is trying to do two things at once. Push innovation forward and rebuild trust. And that's not easy. Because for the first time in years, users have real alternatives. And they're not afraid to explore them. Microsoft never said Windows 11 is a mistake. But they didn't need to. A quiet change usually means they got the message. They pushed too hard. Users pushed back. Now they're finding balance. So what do you think? Is Microsoft really listening? Or just gearing up for the next wave? Are you sticking with Windows 11 or considering a switch? Let me know in the comments. Backhand index pointing down. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to TechGetter Official for more Windows features. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.